Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. So titiksha, forbearance or endurance, or the capacity to endure the reality. And the reality is, it's both. It's both sometimes up, sometimes down, sometimes praise, sometimes censure, sometimes hot, sometimes cold, sometimes healthy, sometimes unhealthy. And then when it's in reference to those who are close to you, we need to have some form of fallback to be able to endure that, because it's the hardest forms of endurance is when someone close to you is in some way affecting you, and you know how it's how hard it is to sort of maintain your composure and still do what has to be done while enduring, some challenges. And we said one of the ways is to recognize that everyone that you know is acting from emotional pain and from a certain level of ignorance. Nobody knows everything. And knowing those two, that they are under the spell of some form of idea or some sort of ignorance and emotional pain that has coincidentally arisen at the time that you happen to be around. It's just there. You happen to be associated with them, and it's arisen. It may even be you. Maybe your pain arises at some time, maybe this year or next year, and suddenly you enter a new stage. Suddenly something is there and you have to work through it. And in that moment, you may disturb those around you. They may be very concerned about you. And so, right, you have to kind of also let them know that, hey, this is not about you. I'm just going through something and I'm kind of confused right now. So I need you to be patient. So similarly, when it's the other side, when you are on the receiving end, then you would definitely appreciate it if they let you know that they're going through something. But in the real world, you don't always have that. In fact, hardly ever do they say, hey, look, I am going through something. I need you to maximize your endurance levels right now. And so that, it will be ideal. But so you have to have some form of a surefire way to find yourself in that circle of chaos and movement and thunderstorms and ocean tides and tornadoes, and still retain your composure without losing yourself. And this is the hardest thing to do, actually. In fact, there's two hardest things to do. One is to conquer lust, and two, it is to maintain endurance during storms. And so then we proceeded and said, what will allow you to have this endurance? And that is a certain level of trust in the teaching. So you see, Vedanta is not just one system or some philosophy or a method that was devised by some one prophet. Whatever is devised by a prophet or one person, if you look at it closely, it's largely more or less incomplete. It has some good teachings in it, but if one person creates a religion or a movement, then that entire movement is based on one single mind, and one mind knows very little. It doesn't have the culture, it doesn't have the different experiences from different walks of life. If they're a sannyasi, they're not a grihasta. If they're a grihasta, they're not a sannyasi. So whatever they develop will be limited based on their own experience and their own lifestyle and their own upbringing. So unlike a prophet or one man who devises something which starts a movement, unlike that, Vedanta is a collection of many minds through thousands of years that have collectively discerned what are those nuances of life that we all notice once in a while, but we miss out because we're too busy. So like this, the teaching starts to develop little by little, Those parts that are not entirely sound, they get removed. Those parts that are universally true, they remain. And so through the course of time, you end up having what we call Vedanta, knowledge that cannot be negated, no matter how hard you try. It is not a religion, it's not a philosophy, it's not some kind of a system, it's just what is. It's just the observation of laws, observation of life as we experience. And so through that alone, you say, so if Vedanta is like that, then it stands to reason, then I can definitely put some provisional trust into it. And at least suspend my initial skepticism and see whether this works for me. That's what Shraddha is about. A provisional, simple trust. Now the next value, having developed this titiksha and Shraddha, your mind is now more and more available to focus on one thing. And so verse 16, samadhana, one-pointedness. Sarvada sthapanam buddhehe shuddhe brahmani sarvata tat samadhanam iti uktam na tu chittasya lalanam. Let's focus on the word mind first, and then we'll focus on the first line. So your mind, sometimes it's like a child, isn't it? A child doesn't remain in one place for too long. They want to explore. They don't want to settle for too long. So the mind, in some sense, is like a 2-year-old child. It just wants to go somewhere. It wants to, go to its favorite places because it's pleasant to do so. Can you relate to this? And even if you tell your mind, if you rationalize and say, hey, this is not right, I just need you to focus for a day or two, even then the mind may listen like a child for, okay, mommy, but then how long is a child going to say yes to that? I mean, my observation, no more than, depending on the strictness of the mother, but those naughty days, when they have those naughty days, no more than 15 seconds.
Oh, 15 seconds. Oh, I had said 15 minutes.
15 minutes? Yeah. Depends on how strict you are. So you can definitely get away with it, but nevertheless, it's still 15 minutes. Even if it's minutes, it's still 15. It's not 30 minutes. And in 15 minutes, you can't really do very much. So with the mind as to how to put it into a state of focused attention, knowing that the mind is like a 2-year-old child, how do you put a 2-year-old child, how do you put him into one place? Have you ever tried this? How do you put a child into one place? Okay, that's a good idea, but let's look behind those words. So if the child is in one place through sweets or toys or coloring books or sometimes iPad, right? What is it that keeps them in that place?
Reading a story.
Reading a story too, yeah, definitely. What is it that a minute ago you saw them running around, hitting their sister, destroying sister's Lego pieces, and now they're sitting there in one place and able to focus for 15 minutes or as long as the story lasts.
It's interesting or exciting. Attention.
Yeah, attention. Okay. Okay, but then why is... So in other words, the child had that capacity all along, didn't he? And you had to discover it for the child. You had to discover it for the mind.
To change the program in the mind of the child.
Yeah. So in other words, you somehow... The program was there, and that program needed some confinement, didn't it? You needed to confine that mind to one place, but not just anything, not confined just to anything, confined to something that that mind found the value in. So now the question is, or more like a statement, did you ever observe men who, seemingly cannot, like grown-up men, working, and now they're sitting 3 hours playing poker? Focused, completely focused. Kids, you put in front of a computer game, 8 hours. And yet we say they don't have the attention. Same thing with us. Oh, I don't have the attention to 5 minutes to focus, to contemplate, to meditate. But the truth is you do. So now, how do I discover that point of attention that we all have? What is it that you would need to confine your mind to, that your mind finds so much value, or a thing that you have perceived in such a way that before that perception you found no value, but after that kind of perception, change of perception, suddenly that very same thing, you help your mind focus. Is that possible?
Yes.
Absolutely. Is it easy? Not easy, but it's possible. And is there one specific method? No, but you have to find that. So if anyone ever says, I don't have the focus, because focus is so important, isn't it? All things, all great things done are in a state of focus. Even 10 minutes of high focus can be more worthy, 10 minutes of high focus, than one entire day of little bit of words, phone, little bit of words, phone, cook, come back, listen to audio, okay, let's check the phone, little bit of words, play back the audio. All day like this, 10 minutes of focused attention can be more worthwhile, more productive than that kind of a lifestyle. So then the question is, in how do I develop a natural one-pointedness mind in any kind of situation? What would you have to do to take this amazing instrument and just laser focus it like a light, a dispersed light, and you take a magnifying glass and that same light that was everywhere diffused now has 10-fold power? It's possible. We know that for sure. And every human being has that potential. And you have your own ways of focusing. My way of focusing like that, for instance, is when I can't focus, I just get up and I walk and I study. I move left and right. I just call it pacing, walking up and down the room. What's your method? Some people put on headphones and they walk on a park.
I do pull-ups.
Yeah?
Immediately, clear my mind.
Excellent. Some people swim.
Yes, I sit in my bath.
And your bike?
No, I'm in the bathtub.
Yeah?
As soon as I go into the water, it's like...
Okay. Yeah, I heard Mozart effect. There was a study done, Mozart effect. They play this Mozart music, and because it now activates the emotional part of the brain, and as you know, memory is very strong with emotion. When there's emotion involved, memory becomes very active. When you strip away emotion, then your capacity to remember, it just decreases significantly. So if you ever want to remember or focus, even music can help. Background music, even an incense stick or some flowers, some smell can go a long way. Yeah, anything to help yourself, one-pointedness.
Well, what helps me is, for example, when I look to a video from one of your sessions, although I understand you, I read along the subtitles.
Got it.
So, looking at subtitles, reading, listening, helps me very much with concentration.
Okay, good idea. Looking at subtitles. And so samadhanam is more likely than focus. It is a natural byproduct of having a pure mind, not being so distracted by so many goals in life. I need this, I need that. Remember how we started out? Viveka? It all started with Viveka. A discernment between nitya and anitya viveka. By discerning that which is permanent and impermanent, I'm less concerned about the impermanent. My mind is more on the permanent, on what matters, on the values, on the goals that really matter to me, in the line of your own strengths and weaknesses, in the line of your own nature as a person. You're naturally more available to that. less distraction of other things. And what happens? One-pointedness. It's a byproduct. Okay. Now, as a consequence of confining your mind and giving it some kind of discipline again and again and again, that's called refinement, confinement, refinement, confinement, again and again and again, feeding your mind with that discipline to stay in one thing, like a project or something that you enjoy. As a result of that, the verse continues, now your mind is capable of being placed, or its buddhi, its attention, is capable of being placed in awareness Brahman. Now what does this mean? Because we're not in the second section of the course yet. For now, it means that the only worthy pursuit that your mind appreciates and recognizes is the inquiry into the truth. Why? Because it's focused. It excludes all those things that I was giving value to. This is valuable, this is valuable, this is valuable. You see this? You see how it's connected? The more this is valuable, the less one-pointedness. The more I have objectivity in reference to objects, that means stripping out the coloring, the meaning that I've given onto objects. When I strip out the coloring and the meaning, they have less pull for me. They have less pull, less distraction. The less pull and distraction, the more your mind is naturally available to contemplating on, inquiring into the truth. And this inquiry, what does this give you? An infinite reward. And this is leading naturally onto having this recognition that the only worthy pursuit is to pursue that which is infinite. You become a mumukshutva. Verse 17, ahankara adi deha antan bandhan ajnana kalpitan swaswarupa avabodhena moktum icha mumukshuta. So as a consequence of having focus and endurance and open-mindedness, what happens now? Burning desire to let go of attachment to objects. Hoping some worldly object or future heaven will save me. That is born of self-ignorance. And recognize the self as the highest value is mumukshuta. So what do we say is the limitation of all human suffering? What is your life centered upon? What is your whole life centered upon? What kind of an eye is it? It's a limited eye. And how do we know it's a limited eye? Actions. And why do we pursue actions? To enjoy. Why do we want to enjoy? Because it's going to remove a sense of limitation. For how long? For a temporary amount of time. And thus we engage in repeat, rinse and repeat. So this is the order. So the root of all suffering thus becomes an identity, I, which is limited, and this limited identity, which in actual fact is free. This I, who is free by nature, becomes mixed up with body. And so we say, I'm a little bit, thin, I'm a little bit fat, I'm a little bit tall, I'm a little bit short. And that becomes a psychological issue now. It goes even further. Oh God, I'm aging, so I'm going to get plastic surgery. Or, oh look, nothing, let me go and get some, mass, so I can look and be perceived in a certain way and gain respect. So that becomes now one's identity. Life force. I am thirsty. I am tired. I'm tired all day. I don't have energy. That becomes a self-esteem issue now. Oh, who am I? I'm just a tired person. I'm not worthy. I'm so energized. I'm energized. So it becomes your dating profile thing. Oh, I've got high energy. This is me. Then the mind. which is emoting, recollecting, memorizing, recollecting, doubting, then you say things like, oh, I'm so forgetful. Oh, I'm just a forgetful person. Or I'm a doubtful person. I doubt. I'm skeptical of all things. I'm just so, I'm such an emotional person. Now that becomes your identity. And then the intellect, you say things like, I am a decision maker. I haven't made the right decision. Now that becomes a psychological burden. I'm not making the right decisions because I am the executor. I'm the one that executes things. I've executed this and a bad result has come. Now I put it onto me. And then we identify with what's called the causal body. The causal body is, you say things like, I'm an enjoyer. The purpose of life is to enjoy. The purpose of life is to pursue pleasure. I want to feel good. I deserve to feel good. I'm entitled to feel good. Thus, the whole I is invested in going through these privileges, right? Improving the body, improving the mind, improving the memory, improving the intellect, improving the enjoyment. The whole I gets entangled in this. And that becomes bondage. And what is bondage? Bondage is a product of ignorance. Not knowing that I am actually free of the body, of the life force, of the mind, of happiness, of misery. I'm free of all this. But not knowing any better, it becomes my whole life. I'm free of these 5 layers. And so my whole life becomes entangled. Now, a mumukshu recognizes this, and he says, no matter how much I feed my mind, or my memory, or my intellect, how much I enjoy, it's all going to come to an end. So mumukshu stops seeking for external enjoyments, even internal enjoyments. Stop seeking that, because a mumukshu recognizes there's no end to this. There's no end to embellishing the I. You know what a mumukshu does? A mumukshu is no longer embellishing the I. It's like a Christmas tree. What do you do with a Christmas tree? Who puts a Christmas tree in a house and just sort of leaves it there? Nobody. What do we do with a Christmas tree? We embellish it. It's natural. So we embellish our I like the Christmas tree. We put jingles and shine and all qualifications and a long resume. A mumuksha says, no more embellishment of the I. I've been doing that for too long. It's not working. I now want to de-embellish the I. I want to remove the jingles and all these things that are making my I so heavy and so complex and so entangled that I just can't genuinely enjoy. And even the enjoyment itself becomes superficial. It's like, oh, okay, cool. It's just dopamine released from the brain. What's the big deal? So a mokshu comes out of this whole idea that, I want to just add things onto the I. Rather, I want to free this I from bondage of those 5 layers, of the body, of investment into the energy, and memory, and doubting, and skepticism, and certificates, and you name it, and fame, and wealth, and so on. That's a mumukshu. Now, a mumukshu being ready, qualified, what happens next? He or she approaches a teacher. Verse 19, characteristics of the guru. Shrotriya avrjinaha akamahataha yaha brahmavittamaha brahmani upparataha shanta nirindhana iva anala ahetuka daya sindhu bandhu anamatam satam. And then verse 20, tam aradhya gurum bhaktya prahva prashraya sevanaihi prasanam tam anuprapya prachet jnatavyam atmanaha. It says, having worshipped with devotion that teacher, the one who has studied the Shastra, the scriptures, does not have papam, so he's talking about the teacher, does not have papam, who is not affected by desire, who is the knower of Brahman, with the mind resolved in the knowledge of Brahman, who is calm like the fire that does not have any more fuel, who is like the ocean of compassion without any reason, who is a helpful friend to the seeker who salute him with appreciation. One must approach him or her who is pleased by the service with a proper attitude and ask him or her what is to be known. So now we are entering the stage of the student having the qualifications approaches this Brahmavit. Brahmavit, a teacher who doesn't merely know the reality intellectually, but understands it directly, is established, one's mind is established in the truth, free from doubt. And then it says, his or her mind is compared to the glowing coals of a fire, deprived of fuel, without flickering flames. What does this mean? Have you ever been next to a bunch of coals? How stable they are? Did you notice that? They're not random. They don't have those sparks, those random sparks. They're just sort of warm. You come around those conglomerate, those pack of coals, and they're just warm and they have a stable presence about them. And they emit this calm energy about them. Like that, this is Guru. Free from agitation. Having worked on one's mind, his mind is free from agitation. And who else is this Guru? Is a Shrotriya, wields the knowledge with confidence and skill. Takes what is present and is able to wield it in a way and pass it on to the student. And then it's like a friend. A teacher is like a friend. You see, a teacher who demands submissiveness or ego-busting techniques, this used to be happening, like I'm going to bust your ego, or asks for favors. This is a teacher coming from their own pressures. Why would a teacher ask for favors? Why would a teacher have a need to bust your ego? What kind of a teaching is this? You're a human being like anyone else. So these kinds of teachers, they're there, but this is not what Vedanta tradition is about. We don't bust anyone's ego. We simply reveal, what is the truth. So a teacher doesn't do this. He or she is like a friend. Does your friend bust your ego? Does your friend, demand submissiveness? Your friend does not do that. A teacher, from the verse, is like a friend. Therefore, a teacher doesn't do that to the students. If they do, then they haven't worked out their own stuff. And so they have a need to project, and this projection always comes out sooner or later. It cannot be withheld. It will come out. And you can see this. So this is a teacher. Now, that's the teacher. What about the role of the student? It says the student makes the teacher pleased. What does this mean? How do you make a teacher pleased? Okay, let's take any example. If a teacher is just speaking and you are just sort of listening but showing no participation, can that be pleasing for the teacher? No way. So this means it's going to directly affect the teacher and the quality of their teaching is going to come down, and that in return you will feel that, so it will be an endless loop of downwards. So you can see what we say, Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bunaktu, Sahaviryang Karavavahe. Let us both strive hard, because to go through the 10 days or however many days, it's hard work. A lot of, it's exhausting, and both have to help each other to stay afloat. So that's the role of a student. Now, Having known both the roles of the teacher and the student, then the next thing is, what does the student do? The student asks a question, what is to be known? And they state the problem to the teacher. This is how traditionally the student used to approach the teacher. The student didn't just say, I need you, help me. Because the teacher doesn't know anything about you. So what do? You state what you understand so far. Here's where I'm at, and here's what I want to know. Now, to give you an example how they used to speak, this will be in verse 21. This is the student now saying, Durvara samsara davagni taptam dodhu yamanam duradrishta vataihi bhitam prapanam paripahi mrityoho sharanyam anyam yat aham na jane. So this is a student now saying to the teacher, oh, teacher, I'm seeking refuge. I'm scorched by the forest fire of samsara, and I can't put it out. I'm shaken by the constant hits, the constant slaps of life. I see no refuge. Help me. So now here the word samsara is the forest fire. Now suppose you're caught in a forest fire. Anything you throw in the forest fire, what's going to happen? It's going to consume because it's so scorching. So the forest fire is like this world. Whatever you throw at the world, it takes away it from you. It just takes it away from you. No matter how much you try to find peace in this world, it just burns it all up. And you get disappointed. My goodness, I was giving out of the goodness of my heart, and it just got, lost nowhere. And I am like this person. Samsara is like forest fire. It consumes one after another. I see death all around me. I see people being lost everywhere. My memory is being burned by this fire. My life, my body is aging. It's being thrown into this fire. People that I loved and I depended on, I got all my happiness, they too got thrown into this fire. All my knowledge that I thought is going to work, and I was hoping, and I had such huge aspirations and bright dreams, that too got thrown into the fire. Help me. Everything I've ever done, it just gets all burned up into nothing. What do I do? And so it becomes a fear. I too will be thrown into the forest fire one day. So not only am I seeing those that I love being thrown into the forest fire, but I am right in the queue. I am next. And I want to come out of this. I don't want to be going to the forest fire anymore. Therefore, the student has now recognized there is no security in wealth or pleasure or even virtue. There's so many YouTube courses on virtue, being virtuous, being wise, relatively wise. This too gets thrown into the forest fire. So what? Okay, you're wise, great. Okay, but I'm just going to have a chocolate bar. I'm not going to listen to your wisdom. What bearing does it have for me? It's just wise. The next verse, naturally, the Guru expresses his confidence in the student. And he says, verse 23, Ma bhaishta vidvamstava na asti apayaha samsara sindhoho tarane asti upayaha yena eva yata yatayaha asya param tam eva margam tava nirdishami. O learned one, do not be afraid. There is no more danger for you. There is a means for crossing the ocean of samsara. I will show you the same way by which alone people of right effort have gone to the other shore of the ocean of samsara. So he calls his student here Vidvan. Vidvan often is a knower of Brahman. But here Vidvan is not a knower of Brahman. It is one who has figured out that a limited person performing a limited action with a limited amount of intensity, with a limited amount of time, in a limited place, with limited knowledge, will never lead to a limitless result. It will always lead to a one more limited result. So that much this Vidvan has figured out. And Thereby, because I have Shraddha, they put trust into Vedanta, and thus the Guru says, Ma Bhaishta, do not be afraid. Vedanta has already solved this on and on and on again for many people like you. I have a solution. And what does this involve? It involves Shravanam. What is Shravanam? Like before entering a temple, you need to certainly put your shoes aside. What does this mean? I need to put aside my notions that I know it, that I've heard it, that I'm better, that I'm worse, that I'm not good enough, that I'm too good, that I'm smart, that I'll never get it, that everything before me has failed. I need to put all of those self-imposed limiting notions, those self-imposed notions, I need to put it aside out there in the class, and when I walk in with no notions whatsoever. The only idea that I have is, I want to understand. Now you're ready to Shravana, listen. That means the student now, by the time they have come to verse 23, all their stuff, their shoes, their self-imposed limitations outside, they're no longer in the class. What does this mean? The student is no longer saying now, I'm afraid. We're now entering section 2. Oh, now the truth is going to be revealed. Oh, but I can't do this because it failed last time. Oh, moksha is not for me. All of that stuff that belongs to you is now out. No more in the class. And then mananam, reflection. Now that the student is listening, as the student continues to listen throughout the course, what will happen is objections will come, and the student will examine those objections, and they will not let those objections go. They will want them answered. They will want them resolved, either through their classmates or by the help of a teacher. And as they go home, because the student will go home soon enough, then they have a follow-up system. And that follow-up system is nididhyasanam. They will take everything that happened with the guru and the students, and they will use daily challenges and perceive them in the light of what they have learned in the class. Therefore, it will be a homework for the rest of one's life. Otherwise, knowledge can't fructify. What else does the guru say? Okay, so let's see, verse 24. Ajnana yogat paramatmanaha tavahi anatma bandha tataha eva samsmritihi tayoho viveka udita bodha vachnihi ajnana karyam pradahet samulam. So the root cause. And what's the root cause of one's suffering, as we said? Ignorance. Not knowing that I'm already full, whole, and complete. And what is this root cause cause? A rebirth. Life after life. Many births and death. And why is that? Because where is your eye? In that which comes and goes. Thoughts come and go. I am as good as my thought, thus here I am again. Body comes and goes. I am as good as my body, thus here I am again. And so we have a notion, we have a metaphor in Vedanta, and that is, if you take, you're walking and it's not entirely bright, and you're tired, so your concentration is worn out. And this is indicative of samsara. It wears the person out. And because it wears them out, they don't quite see things clearly. And also because you don't always quite have your alertness switched on completely. For this reason, you see something on the ground that's a little bit brownish, someone dropped it, and it's a belt. It's a belt. Someone just dropped it, the anaconda belt. You ever seen that? Skin of an anaconda on a belt. And, they just dropped it. I don't know who's going to drop their belt in the ground, but suppose this happens. And you're walking and you see this belt and you freak out. And you go, it's a little snake, and I'm terribly afraid of snakes. And do you need to kill that snake? That's the question. Do you really need to kill that snake? No, because the snake is not really there, is it? What do you need to do? You need to see the belt. That's the real work. But to see the belt, because my fear is placed in the snake, someone needs to communicate and talk to me in the language of the snake. If they say, no, it's a belt, it's a belt, I'm saying, what are you talking about? It's a snake. You're lying to me. It's a snake. Talk to me in a language that I see. Talk to me in the light of my own ignorance, and lead me out of my ignorance to the truth. So what does the guru have to do? They have to say, well, you see, okay, yeah, it's absolutely a snake, okay. But can you see how, it kind of doesn't have a hood? Yeah, I see it doesn't have a hood. It doesn't really move. Can you see that? Yeah, it doesn't move. Okay, cool. Can you see how it's just sort of, it doesn't reflect, unlike a snake? It doesn't reflect the sun. It doesn't reflect. So what's the guru doing? He's using the language of the student, slowly pointing out the attributes of that which is false and canceling them out to get the student closer to what it actually is. If the guru just says it is not, my dear, a snake, it is a belt, it's too much of a stretch for the person. Therefore, the guru has to do a slow neti, a slow negation of every attribute that the person falsely sees, until one moment enough attributes have been collapsed or negated and the student sees fully, it is completely not what I saw, it is actually a belt. So this journey is thus what we're going to embark on. So now if you take this example and I say, what is ignorance of the belt? How do you define ignorance of the belt? What is ignorance of the belt? It is absence of knowledge of what is. That's what ignorance is. I don't know what it actually is. And because I don't know what it actually is, what happens? My mind fills in a closest approximate, and thus I act in accordance with that, and my whole life is an expression of my own ignorance. But what it actually is just a belt. So like this, the world that we see is like that snake. So what's the guru now going to talk about? Oh yeah, absolutely. You have a body. You have a body. You have emotions. You have a personality. You have a life. Yeah, absolutely. Slowly, the guru is going to strip every one of those out until you see that you are much more than what you thought you were. And that will be the methodology. And so when it comes to this discernment between Atma and Anatma, what is permanent and what is impermanent, then unlike the snake in the belt, when the snake completely disappears, the belt is revealed. But the world doesn't completely disappear, does it? You see the true nature of the world. So that's the only difference. You can't now say that this example applies to enlightenment, because that would mean that once a person gains moksha, the world disappears. It doesn't. The world remains exactly the same. I just see right through the world its true nature. So therefore, that ignorance has to be removed for whom? Everyone, or just one mind? One mind. Because the guru doesn't have that ignorance. The one who sees the snake has that ignorance. So where is ignorance then? In the buddhi. So where do we then put that which opposes ignorance? In the buddhi. So that process is going to begin, and the student then is going to ask 7 kinds of questions to the teacher, and the whole course will be based on answering these 7 questions. Verse 25. Kaha nama bandha katam eshaha agataha katam pratishtha asya katam vimokshaha kaha asau anatma paramaha kaha atma tayoho vivekaha katam etad uchyatam. So the student so far has been told that he is or she is free. Because we've been speaking relatively right about your nature being free. You're not bound to your body. But obviously, the student still asks the 7 questions, so he isn't quite convinced. And because he or she is not convinced, they ask the 7 questions, which is, what is bondage? Taking your illusion seriously. Not able to let go, based on much moksha. Identification with that which is coming and going.
Leaning on something.
Leaning upon something. Excellent. It's how these words are really sticking with you guys. Good.
Seeking infinite from the finite.
Wow. Seeking infinite from the finite. Excellent.
Not knowing that I'm free.
Not knowing right now that I'm already free. Yeah. Good. Excellent. Very satisfied with this. Number 2, how did it come about? That means, how did this bondage come about? In other words, what's the cause and origin? Why are we ignorant? Why don't we really know? Why could it not just be such that we know all along? Why do we have to be born ignorant? Wants to know. Number 3, how is this bondage sustained? How is this ignorance sustained? Unlike all problems in life that get ultimately solved, this is the one problem that has survived birth after birth, ignorance. Even when the universe dissolves and a new Big Bang comes, and again a new human species come, again here I am. I solved so many problems, relationship, money problems, I've solved every problem imaginable, but the one problem that has always remained and persisted is ignorance of my true nature. How come it's not solved so far? Why is it so persistent? Number 4, how is liberation possible? Is it even possible, teacher? Next question. What is not self? Kaha asau anatma. The technical term for anatma is that which is changing, anatma. Comes and goes. Number 6. What is this supreme self, this paramaha, this highest self that you are, that I am? And number 7. How is discrimination between the two, between the self and the not self, how is it even done? Because they are intimately mixed, like water and red paint. It's not like a big block inside water. You just reach in, you take the block out, done. It's so intimate, like water and red paint. How do I separate the two? Because they're never apart. Having asked, verse 26, Shravanam now is going to begin. Yat bodhavyam tava idanim atma anatma vivechanam tat uchyate maya samyak shrutva atmani avadharaya. And thereby the analysis between atma and anatma, which is to be known by you, is being told. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.